What is going on? I am John. I go by the artist name Chamberlain, and I'm here to just answer a few questions. So yeah, let's kick it off. The first one is, what advice would you give to a new producer? Continue watching YouTube videos and experimenting, or jumping in a class or a one-on-one session? So I think this one totally depends on what your goals are and what you are wanting to, how far along the process you are. So I think that in general, there's a big misconception that there are like some secret plugins or secret weapons that will automatically make everything sound professional. That's definitely not the case. It's just that you get better and better and better at hearing things, and that takes a huge amount of time. That being said, the fundamentals of music production and also learning the tools are extremely necessary, and you can guess and sort of figure it out yourself, but it's so much faster to just take a class and learn what these things mean. So every time I if I buy a new plugin or something, I'll usually either watch a bunch of tutorials to make sure I know it, or like if it's really complicated, like take a class on how to learn how to do it. And I've definitely done classes and stuff before, and I would say for those kind of things, then it's definitely worth it. I try to have in my mind when I'm working the technical side completely almost assume knowledge, so that's like second nature, so I can just create I could just focus on the creative side without needing to clog up my brain with what's the problem here and how do I solve it. The faster you can get doing that, then the more you can spend in the creative side of your brain. So I guess that, I don't know if that really answers your question, but basically it comes down to how far along the way or how comfortable you are with using the tools at your disposal. If you feel like there's a shortcut that you can take to do it by getting a class, then yes. But if the path ahead is just getting experience to further develop your skills, may not be the case. That being said, it can't hurt putting money into your own art. Like, so if that's something that you definitely want to do, I always recommend go for double down on yourself and put money into the things that you care about. So you'll just end up caring about them a whole lot more as well once you have your own financial investment inside it. The next question is, if a KFC Zinger box could be translated to a MIDI or audio effect, what would it look or sound like? Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Ableton amp because it's super crunchy, and like Wicked Wings are crunchy and stuff, so 100% Ableton amp. Next question from Stone Pulse Music. I'm really curious how much music you had created before being noticed or picked up by a label. And what would you recommend to be the best avenue to get your music out there for someone who struggles with self-promotion? So even before I started this project as Chamberlain, I was making probably, I'll call it like cheesier EDM, and I probably did that for 4 years. Even before that, I was playing guitar in high school, and I wanted to be in a band, and I was just experimenting with GarageBand, and I also learned piano from being when I was a kid. But from touching a digital audio workstation, it was probably about 4 years. I will say, looking back also, that I wasn't I'm not completely happy with how things sound. If I could do it again, I could probably do it a lot easier with my eyes closed and make it sound 10 times better. I would say though that my advice is, and I think I only ever got anywhere the moment I gave up trying to search for a label or trying to fit in the sound with a label. I would say, don't make that your end goal. Make your end goal to be having fun. And once you do that, that's when you kind of discover more of what your own sound is, and that's when you'll just keep creating and creating, and that's far more you'll be far more likely to be heard with your own musical identity, and also you have such a better time than always being behind the eight ball trying to fit in with what labels sound like. That being said, to get your stuff noticed, I would also look into what the job is of public, like regarding public relations and stuff when you release your own music, even if it's independently. Like, it's really, really good training to just figure out all the things that like a label should do and do it yourself, so you have an appreciation for it. When I used to do things like that, it would be like just sending out tons and tons of emails to labels, and yeah, I think it's like a rite of passage that every artist has been rejected heaps of times and still keeps going. But that, and like submitting stuff to tons of blogs and YouTube channels and Spotify playlists, just knowing how to be in the rhythm of that and being able to pull that card out if you need to do that. And I think even like with Gravitas Create and stuff, it's really good to have it's really good that there's like a community around that as well, because it means you've probably already found your people that you want to be hanging around with and stuff. But yeah, that kind of thing, like understanding what how to outreach people and write emails to cold outreach people and stuff is a very, very important part of releasing your own music. I will say Jesse also, like Jesse from Gravitas, has got some of his webinars and stuff have got extremely good advice as well, and he knows it far better than me, so I can't recommend. If there's any of them up and about somewhere, watch them, because he has a really good approach to attacking that. The next question is from Android Dreaming, aka Jacob. Kaylin mentioned you do your own management and bookings. How did you get started doing your own bookings? Did you have a following, and then did venues start reaching out to you? Or are you proactive about reaching out for venues and festivals? I kind of had a mixed bag actually getting started with this. So my intention when I wanted to start this was, I knew kind of where I sat musically, but then I wrote a catalog of music that probably took me about 2 years so I could present it to a festival. The only festival that I knew that kind of may accept the music at the time was Rainbow Serpent Festival, and when I submitted it to them, I was lucky enough to get booked on my first submission. Before that time, when I was nearing the having a full catalog of music to be able to play in a set, so I could at least play I wanted to play at least 75% my own stuff. I would go to nightclubs, sometimes by myself. I would figure out who all the key players are in my own town and try and outreach them and get on their radar and stuff, because that's extremely important. You're going to work with your friends, find out who is out there and get involved with them, and just make sure that you know who's around. When the time comes, it kind of all flourished for me at once. I got to be able to go play at this festival, and then pretty much shortly after that I got management that took over, which actually helped a lot of my bookings and everything. Right now I'm doing my own bookings management, but I'm just having a read of the question again. Getting started with it was pretty much a complete networking situation. Once that happened, then I started to be able to have enough momentum to have people reach out to me. Right now it's a bit of a mix of a both. In Australia, I know it's, even if you want to, even if you've played at festivals previously in the past, it kind of is expected that you put applications in for festivals, but it's not unheard of for, I guess, promoters now. I would say that's probably a pretty normal thing, where promoters would reach out to me and ask me if I'm interested in playing a gig or a venue. Regarding advice on that, again, I think probably one of the easiest things too is really having your own musical identity is a really, really, really strong thing. I cannot recommend that more than anything, because that will help separate, that makes people know what they're paying for, it's gonna separate you from being someone else as well. Regarding bookings and everything else too, I would say that it might be a little bit more than a Google away, but there are a few things just to know about negotiating and stuff that it's probably a bit too detailed to go into here, but I would look into that as well, just so when the time comes that you're prepared. It's something that I struggle with all the time, because being an artist, it's really easy to undervalue yourself, but it's just worth noting as well. There's an art to negotiation as well. Putrid Planet asks, what advice would you have for small producers on mixing their tracks to be the best sound possible? And when the industry is so large, what is the key to success? The key to success. I wish I could tell you. I think, again, that comes down back to having your own musical identity, but also knowing that if you really, really, really enjoy writing music, that is only 50% of what is required of you. If you really, really enjoy writing music and you're an introvert and you're not used to doing all the networking things that I was previously talking about, there's a lot of things that you will have to undertake that you won't like. Like, again, as I was saying, all the demos you'll put out, or like rejection, things that you have to face and stuff. I would say the key is probably persistence and enjoying your own craft, because if everything else fails, you got to know that at least you're having fun. With regarding mixing, so I will answer this in a technical manner, actually, because I feel like everyone tries to overcook their things. Knowing also the difference between sound design and mixing. So sound design is something I think that when you blend the two of these together, people just go overboard and overcook their sounds. Sound design, you can go wild with and experiment with everything. When it comes to mixing, you're not really doing a huge amount of things. And I would say that when in doubt, a lot of my mixing pretty much is 90% of the time, it's where the volume levels sit at, sample selection, and just like cropping the high and low end of each channel. So like just low pass filtering and high pass filtering things, and like maybe I'll high shelf things downwards if I want to take focus away from it. That is about 99% of what I do. Then there's like some dynamic stuff and a few other things. I'll probably say, okay, that's the 98% of what I do, and the last 2% is all the like dynamics and everything else and spatial things. But I wouldn't try to overthink mixing too hard. To be honest, when it comes to people's flaws with their mixes, it actually a lot of the time comes down to the fact that they've probably used samples that don't sound good, or they've used synths that sound like crap. Like, you can't make them sound good. You can maybe in the sound design phase, but not in the mixing phase, when you just have to, like, you've only got these tiny tools at your disposal to make them fit in. But understanding those differences between sound design and mixing for sure is definitely something that'll make it sound good. Also, I will say that a lot of the time too, sometimes like you can hear songs that, I would say more importantly than anything, well, no, yeah, not even just I would say, more importantly than anything is to have a good idea that your song or track should be, because even if it's something that sounds like it's mixed perfectly, but it's just, there's nothing, like there's no real idea to it, it'll just be really boring. So yeah, that's probably making sure your ideas are really strong, like have real strong foundations as you start to write with them, is a huge thing, which also comes with time as well, I think. But I think that's something that's super overlooked, and I think a lot of people attribute the flaws of their tracks to just being the mix, but that can be actually a key thing. Like when people write things, it's always a good idea to step back and come back to it a day later and figure out like what's the selling point of the track that's being written. Because if there's not a clear defined idea that's coming through, then it's probably not going to be that great. Said Sound says, what's your approach to using vocal samples in your music? Okay, cool. So I use a bunch of samples all the time. what I generally do is one method I do is in Ableton I will drop a sample in, and then I will use its in the simpler there's a slice function, like an automatic slicing function that will spread like chopped up pieces of audio over your keyboard. I use that a lot. I save a bunch if I've got a piece of audio that I really like it might be like a rap a cappella or something. I'll slice it up and save bits for later that I really enjoy using. I use a combination of both. I do use samples in audio all the time and manually drop it down, and that takes a really long time to do to get the rhythms right and stuff, but that was just how I started doing it when I first started doing it. Using though audio samples or like vocal samples in drum racks or in simpler is a really fast way to not have to do that and get started. And I also love the plugin Alter Boy as well, massively. I use that heaps. There's one by Infected Mushroom guys called Manipulator as well, which is really good for making vocals sound wacky. And pretty much always I saturate everything, not just vocals, but vocals I definitely do, but pretty much secret to things sounding good, saturation. Let me think if I do anything else major. I mean, I pitch things up and down all the time, which like that's what little Alter Boy does. And also the plugin Soothe by OX Sounds, or Soothe 2 now, is amazing for that kind of stuff. I use that all the time for de-essing. That's a really smart de-esser plugin that'll automatically find resonant tones and remove them, resonant frequencies and remove them. I don't just use that exclusively on vocals. I think it was designed for vocals only, but I use that in like distortion and hats and everything. Anytime anything sounds too sharp, I just use that straight away. Woofy Wolf says, what are some of your favorite less heard of plugins, hidden gem, secret weapon type plugins? Yeah, so again, I would say Soothe 100%. That will make your life so much easier. It's pretty expensive, but once you have it, like, oh man, you're set. Little Alter Boy, like I just said, I use all the time. Carvo is a Maxwell Live plugin, which is a drum. It's a transient shaper, but is by far the best transient shaper I've used. Like it's amazing. That one, I find a lot of other transient shapers really hard to use, or not hard to use, but like the transient becomes really loud, and then the body of the sound starts to get too quiet. I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but it never quite does what I need it to do, or like the peaks of the transients will be too loud. This has some automatic compensation that goes on inside it, so you're not just like throwing the sounds up so loud. Let me think what else. I use Shaper Box 2 by Cable Guides for all my side chaining stuff. That I just have like one bus, and that has like multi-band side chaining inside it, so like you can draw the actual envelope of the side chain that you want in it, and you can separate it into 3 bands, which I find super useful if you want to have like, you want your kick sounding like, you want your drums to sound transparent with your mix, not like if it's, I mean, sometimes like if you want it to be super dance floor and have everything duck, you can do that, but if you want it to sound transparent but there not conflict, you can have your kick take away sounds from the bass and then still have it coming through in the high end, or like change the envelopes that you want coming through in the high end, so it just sounds far more natural but still creating space for the kick. Decapitator by Sound Toys, I think, is a really good saturation plugin. Also the Ableton Saturator, you pretty much use that on everything, and this is not a hidden gem at all, but like if you're not using OTT, yeah, like everyone uses that. That's insane. Like the multi-band dynamics preset that comes with Ableton. Audio Odyssey, sound design related. When you have an idea for a sound in your head, what is the process of creating that sound in the real world? How do you choose your fundamental and modulations. This is something that I actually struggle with a lot as well. I did a class by a group recently called, it wasn't that recent, but it's probably a couple of years ago now, called by the School of Bass. It's by Donation. It's called School of Bass. I can't recommend that enough. That's a super powerful way that got me to understand how to, I guess, dive out of the narrow shell that I had put myself in for sound design. I would say more often than not, for some sounds, it just comes again, and I know this answer kind of sucks, but it comes with experience of just knowing and using a plugin back to front to know exactly what filters sound like what wavetables sound like what you need to reach for when doing things, what you can reach for, and what your capabilities are. The other thing though is that a lot of the time when I'm like, if you're sound designing, you may be in a completely new territory. You're not after anything specific. You're just becoming a mad scientist and trying to see what you can come up with. I think that's far more, a far more common approach that I have. And when you do that, I guess the end point is what you stop when you're happy, not when you stop when you've found what you were looking to create. Because you're not looking to create anything specific. You're just looking to play around till you get something that you like. It's just that length of the destination is kind of unknown. You may spend time and come up with nothing, and it might be garbage. The whole session might be garbage, but it might not be. But I guess that's the beauty of it, and that's why I hope, like, in doing this, everyone that does this has a lot of fun, because it's not wasted time if you're having fun. Analog 303 says, what is your mindset and or workflow from starting and finishing tracks? Okay, so this is actually something that I have struggled with a lot as well. But I would say that, first of all, I have a template in Ableton that I always go to that has basically a bunch of channels set up, so I can jump into it and just draw drums out really, really quickly and know that everything's sidechained the way I need to and everything else. Recently, I've wanted to try and separate like my sound design sessions from my writing sessions, because in general, the more you try and do at once, the worse what you do will turn out. Not to say that it's a bad idea all the time, but the best sessions are the ones where you sit down and you've got an idea at the back of your head and you start writing, and then you just hit flow state and just continue going. It's going to take doing to get to those sessions where you do reach flow state, and it will take you like 6 hours or 8 hours to finish a track because you can just fly through it. You're going to have to go through a bunch of times where you struggle and it sucks and you're just repeating yourself and doing things. So as long as you're being consistent with how you want to write, you'll reach those good days. That being said, the best way in general is to always start small when you're doing something. So whether it's sound design and you're starting narrow and just building it up till that becomes the selling point, as I was mentioning previously, or you start off with like an instrument of some sort, like a guitar, a piano, whatever it is, starting small, locking yourself into a small realm that you're allowed to travel to. Because when you start reaching out for things everywhere, and just being like, all right, I want to add this or this, or this is what these tracks normally have, and creating things like this, you just start getting this mash of mediocre ideas. It's starting really, really, really narrow and staying narrow to the point where it hits its critical mass. That's when you start reaching for things, and that's when you've hit flow state, and then you'll just be on the straight path to finish. But yeah, whatever it is, staying small and keeping it small till you can't bear to keep it, like till the idea in itself is so solid and small, but it just needs to reach out to just be finished. That's the best way to do it. Hybristophilia says, I make music in a genre that not a lot of people know or listen to. Should I change the kind of music I make? No, don't do that. Do what you find to be the most fun. At the time, I still kind of stand by it. I don't think a lot of people write the kind of vibe that I write music wise. When I first started, I kind of had no idea. Like, there's a few people definitely out there that do it well, but I kind of didn't have any expectation I would have any following or anyone that would I wasn't sure if anyone would appreciate it. It's so much better to do what you feel is true to you, because that is also, again, how you get your own musical identity. And also, if you're doing that, then you're having fun. You are so much more likely to get anywhere by doing that and having your own voice than to change it and just be constantly behind the 8 ball trying to impress others, because it's just not going to be impressive if you're like a watered down copycat of someone else. And at the end of the day, it's only when you like truly like reach inside and find out what the message is that you want to convey, that's the impressive thing, and that's what you're trying to speak. If you're just trying to get from A to B so people can listen to your music, you could change your genre, but yeah, it's not going to be that impressive. And I would also say, don't make a genre, make a mood. Making genres means you'll put boundaries into place of what you think that you should do to stick within these certain lanes, and that's not healthy. Just think of it in making a mood, whether the mood is like a dancehall mood or whatever, but it's just such a healthier way of looking at it. What artists are inspiring you the most right now? So what have I been listening to lately? I have this problem where I don't listen to a huge amount of music. I like a lot of old school hip hop. Right now I've been rinsing some of the Disney soundtracks and some pop music as well, to be honest with you. What's inspiring me the most? I would say hip hop is like 90s hip hop is like a huge thing for me. There's some really good playlists on Spotify that just blast it, like golden. I think it's called like golden era hip hop and stuff. A lot of the stuff that I write revolves around rhythm more than anything else, like rather than melodic content. So hip hop is like straight up where the roots of what I would do is. Let me think if there's anything else. No, I'm gonna leave it with hip hop. And what philosophies do you find both true in life and music creation? I would say you do one thing the way you do everything. So if you're organized in life, you'll be organized in music, and you'll be organized in how you approach it. I'd also say persistence is the biggest key to writing music and everything else. Like, if you get rejected from a label you like, or face rejection and it hurts your ego, it's because you might have been looking for validation. But if you just take it as a stepping stone to be like, all right, I'll just try harder, that's the best way to approach it, because ultimately the finish line is where you give up. And if you give up earlier, then you're not going to reach where you wanted to reach. But if you just keep going and keep going and keep going, and you're having fun doing it, you haven't wasted any time, and you will reach your destination as long as you just keep going. Lastly, I'll also say the grass is greener where you water it. If you look towards other people and see their success and get envious of it, or like try to, what's the word for it? I will say just focus on your own growth and make sure that you can track it and understand where you're at the moment, and also what you need to do. But don't worry about other stories or other people's success or anything. Just make sure you're very, very, very focused internally, and then that's how you'll grow. Sorry, just got disconnected for a bit there from my camera. But that seems to have covered everything. I'm John again, and I hope you learned something today. Cheers.